Riff it.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Terrible Gamers podcast.
Yeah, we got something new for you folks.
Oh yeah, we're excited. I think I don't know. We're kind of nervous
First
about.
times.
We're kind of nervous about this too. So today's episode, and this is going to be a little mini series.
Yeah, it's a mini series.
Little mini series.
Not an hour long episode.
These are going to be very short. I say very short compared to what we do with our podcast.
Correct.
But we are going to be doing versus challenges. So basically, we're going to have games against each other, consoles against each other. We're going to do retro, of course, but I think we're going to dabble a little into the modern too.
Oh, for sure.
Because I think that'll just be a lot of fun talking about the modern games.
We've talked about a lot of different things we're going to discuss or debate, I guess is a better word. And some of them are going to be modern games. Because like one of them just like favorites. I've talked about it on the podcast before. One of my favorites is Halo. Like, yes. That's more of it's. I mean, it's technically got retro, but it's still an active series, so it also falls into that modern category.
Yes, absolutely.
So we will definitely breach. Let me meet you there.
We are still doing our thing though, because this is still a drink, play, drink. We might not be doing much play on this. We might show some gameplay at some points. Maybe not today.
Yeah, today I don't think we're going to.
Today's episode or today's challenge is going to be. I guess I could use the sound. This is when I should be using the sound card.
Yeah, the buttons. There's got to be a drum roll on there or something.
I'll just use the tense, and we're gonna see how it comes out.
Tense is like dun 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 dun.
Perfect. I think this makes sense for this.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah. So today we've decided to open up. First debate is. Your chosen console is
the Sega Genesis,
I have no problem picking the Super Nintendo as my choice.
Yes,
and this is a classic debate in the gaming community.
There may be some rebuttals, but it's more going to be arguing
and punches.
Oh yes. This is going to turn into a wrestling match.
We're a good 10 feet away from each other with a lot of wires between us, though. So
if we get up. It's going to be a very slow process. All right. So, how do we want to start?
That's why I grabbed my phone. I have a coin flip app.
Okay, cool. So what we'll do is the one person will start their arguments, or
just classic debate.
In case of me, the correct answers. So
right. Heads or tails?
Tails never fails.
You'd think so. Tails. Oh, I don't even know if my phone will show up on it.
It sort of. I couldn't see what it said, but all right. So it's tails. So I'll go first. So
you get the choice.
I'll go second. I'll go second
suck.
then. I didn't realize that. Okay, I like it. Okay, so you're going to talk a little bit about the Super Nintendo. Should we do a timer?
We should have thought about that before we started recording.
Yeah, but this is episode 1.
What? 2 minutes? 3 minutes?
Let's do 2 minutes. Let's start with 2 minutes for this. If we're going through here and we feel like we need a little extra time, we can add an extra minute. So originally my thought was 3 minutes. But I feel like 3 minutes could be...
you just let me know when 2 minutes is up, and then that's a wrap up. And then I have that extra time to close.
Then you have to, you have your closing argument. So, and then we will do, so you'll present, I'll present, we'll debate a little, and then we'll call it a draw.
No matter what? You're already calling it a draw?
No, I'm just going to say it's like a 1. But okay, so ready? Whenever.
You're such an ass. This is going to go so badly.
Whenever you're ready.
All right, just hit the timer and let's go.
Shit.
Oh.
I hit a button and it's
calling his wife.
10 minutes. All right, ready? Your 2 minutes starts now, sir.
All right, so basically, it boils down to the library for the Super Nintendo. It had awesome games and more than the Sega. The Sega had its exclusives. Super Nintendo had its own exclusives. But I mean, it boils down to, I don't know what other than Sonic you couldn't get on the Super Nintendo. Like, I was so in a Super Nintendo realm growing up. Like, I don't know what I was missing with Sega. And if you're playing and you got things going on and whatever game you want is there, and you don't even know what you're missing other than Sonic, are you missing much? I thought you were hitting buttons on the sound card.
Good. I'll give you
there are some things about how the sound was better on the Super Nintendo. There was a better graphics, I believe, or I don't know, cutting edge kind of thing. They were pushing the envelope as far as what a 16-bit console could do. They put a lot of work into the visuals and the audio, making them higher quality than the Sega, which when I was a kid I didn't give a shit about, but doing a little bit of research on this, that's what kind of came up. They didn't have the faster CPU, I don't think, but they had a higher quality, something like that. But I'm getting into things that I don't know about.
30
I just
seconds.
want to talk about how Super Mario was my jam. All right, I had Super Mario and I was good. You had Super Mario Kart. Then you got the Donkey Kong. Like all that realm in Nintendo is classic. And I think it honestly boils down to what console do you play Sonic on now? You can answer.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'll see the rest of my time.
You have 2 seconds left. Would you like to wrap up?
I think it literally boils down to you had any game you could have wanted other than Sonic on the Super Nintendo, and eventually Sonic wound up on the Nintendo. So there's not a Sega Switch. There's a Nintendo Switch. The Super Nintendo evolved to a point where it outgrew the Sega, and I don't know if they own them now or what happened, but Super Nintendo won, or Nintendo in general was the victor.
Good job.
I tried.
Good job.
First time. Yeah, Sega had the faster CPU. Sorry, I just looked it up.
Okay, so good now.
Are you setting a timer?
Yeah, I got the timer. Getting ready to start. So
Hit it.
good? All right. Sega was the 90s. Sega has with the 90s cool. When you look at everything about Sega, especially like with their commercials, like Paul Rudd was in the commercial. Wasn't Paul Rudd in the Sega commercials? I believe.
Don't know.
I believe Paul Rudd was in the Sega commercials, and it was a superior. It was definitely superior to the Super Nintendo, because what could you add to the Super Nintendo to make it better? As the console itself.
Why
Nothing.
Why would you need to?
Nothing.
I'm
But-
sorry. Did you?
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
Sega, you were able to add certain peripherals to it,
Needed to.
like the Sega 32X and the Sega CD, which were attachments that went onto the Sega. So those things were able to take what the Sega was already doing and make it that much better. So your Genesis could become that ultimate, that ultimate gaming machine. Now, the other thing, yes, there is.
You're making my argument for me. I love it.
Nope. So
love it.
Sonic was, and still to this day is the game Sonic is better than any of the Sonic 2 for sure. Way better than Super Mario World, right? Just absolutely better. Yes, there was a lot of third parties on there. There was also the celebrity collaborations with the games. Yes, you had Mike Tyson's Punch Out on the Nintendo, but you have Michael Jackson's Moonwalker and Joe Montana Football, and Madden came out for both. I know that, but it just was better.
Joe Montana was not on the Super Nintendo.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't remember. But you know why I don't remember? Because I didn't have a Super Nintendo. Because it sucked.
And I never Sega.
Yeah. So the other thing is Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis was 10 times better, and it was all because of the blood and the gore that were on there.
Put into that version.
Yes, into that version. So the version of that was way better on the Sega. We don't care about family. We care about the gameplay and the playability and the gore and all that stuff. So I had more, but I did not get to it.
2 minutes is short.
That is a lot quicker than I thought, because
Yeah.
man, I was ready to keep going.
But I'm going to rebuttal really quick here.
Yes.
Your whole argument about how you could add on to the Sega just makes me feel like that people felt the need to add on to it to make it better makes it less of a console than the Super Nintendo.
I don't, though, because what they're saying is this console, basically what they were trying to do is Nintendo was looking at the Super Nintendo, and then what was next after the Super Nintendo? The next thing was
The N64.
the N64, right?
Yeah.
There was that long gap between Sega and Super Nintendo getting released and then Nintendo 64 getting released. Okay. Sega in that time said, no, our console is strong enough to already have that next gen stuff on our console. But all you have to do is you buy a plug-in. This thing, the 32X, plugs right into
Yeah,
the
so
Genesis.
Nintendo went from Super Nintendo was 16-bit to 64-bit,
Yes.
whereas the Sega had an attachment to make it a 32.
Correct.
Okay.
That's my argument with that. Now, the other thing is, I feel like some of the games actually played better on the Sega Genesis than the Super Nintendo
that you didn't have.
that you didn't have.
That you didn't have.
That I didn't have.
So how do you know?
My friends had Super Nintendo.
Oh, so you played at their house.
I played at their house. Mortal Kombat was one of them. Mortal Kombat was very smooth.
But did it play different, or was it just cooler because you saw more blood?
I don't know.
Like, I know I'm sure I played like NBA Jam and stuff at my friend's house on a Genesis, but I
What
don't
about
remember any.
Earthworm Jim? Like that's a game that was huge on Sega, but it also came out on Super Nintendo.
I only played on the Super Nintendo. I had no problems with Earthworm Jim. Loved that game.
I would like to see, like, for example, WWF Royal Rumble. I played that a ton on the Sega Genesis.
Played it on the SNES. Like, it was just a game you played.
Yeah. I would have to do to be able to give an even better argument as far as like game versus game. Like, I think that's how this debate needs to be put to rest.
I think there's no rest to this debate, and I think we just spent 10 minutes right where we started. Where you have your favorite, I have my favorite, and the world. This is an endless debate. It just comes down to preference.
Yeah.
It's just what your parents bought for Christmas and what my parents bought for Christmas.
I will say this though. Sega in general, marketing wise, over the Nintendo.
That is something I did see. Sega marketed better.
Sega was night and day. There was no comparison.
Where is Sega from?
It's Japan.
They're both Japanese companies.
Yeah. But when you look, and the one thing that I always went to is what Sega has, what Nintendo don't.
What's that?
That was their slogan.
Shut up! It was not.
Sega has
Nintendo.
Nintendo don't.
No, well, that's
because
somebody got paid a lot of money for that dumbass.
Because Sega's better.
You're also gonna mic drop at the end of this, and you're gonna say something, and you have the fucking clicker.
Yeah, come on. That was gonna be my mic drop, but I'm letting you rebuttal. So
I got nothing left to say. I mean, it comes down to Super Mario is now the game you play with Sonic. Like, Sonic is on Mario.
Yeah, it's Mario versus Sonic in the Olympics.
Right. Like, Sonic is on the Nintendo now. Nintendo 1.
I think the biggest thing with this argument was between Sega, because it's Sega Genesis versus Super Nintendo. It's not Sega versus Nintendo. Because we all know Nintendo technically, I guess, won that console. Won
the console war,
the console war altogether. But in that one specifically, can you pick a winner? Yes, and it's Sega. I mean,
shut up. No, you honestly can't. They are the golden age.
Oh, absolutely. No,
16-bit gaming. They each have their positives. They're each is going to have something up on the other in a different category.
Can you pick between Xbox and PlayStation? Xbox Series X versus PS5.
I like the PS5.
I like the Xbox Series X.
Well, see, and I switched over from Xbox to get a PS5.
I had every single PlayStation ever made.
That's super weird that we did that.
Mm-hmm.
We just
I never had an
changed
Xbox
lanes.
One.
And I haven't had a PlayStation since PS2.
My brother had an Xbox, but it was after he moved out of my parents' house. When he was in college. I had an Xbox 360 for a very short period of time. I traded in for a PS3.
Oh, and I had a PS2, and then I got an Xbox 360 and never looked back until this year.
Just I was not an Xbox person, and then I got the Series X, and I'm like, man, this is amazing.
I don't know. That's a whole nother debate for another time.
Yep. So,
thanks for joining us, folks, for this
Yes.
Nice little mini series.
and we were gonna have many more to come, but that was just the start of the new
little
versus challenge.
little Susan of what we have to come.
Absolutely. And as always, you can check us out on YouTube, Podbean, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts now because I figured it out somehow. It was by accident. So, but thank you all for joining us, and keep on playing.
Keep playing, folks.